Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. Mercedes, after revealing the W14, put it on track at Silverstone for the first time. It did not go to plan though. Some engine issues and some misfiring has caused some serious concern, although Mercedes say nothing really to worry about. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. So this is the W14. We saw it, of course, revealed earlier today, and a surprise second video of the day with a big update on what happens once they finally put the W14 on track. Today was only George Russell in the Mercedes. Tomorrow is the 100-kilometer shakedown they'll do for some filming, this type of stuff. I'm sure we'll get more updates then on how the car is behaving, feeling, all this type of stuff. But today's very brief test to ensure everything was going okay turned out to show that in fact things aren't so okay with the current state of at least that car they put on track. So this is the images right here of it kind of loading up, of course, without the front wing, going onto the track, and you guys can see, of course, George Russell's Mercedes W14 getting wheeled out to get ready to go for a few laps around Silverstone just to see how things are going. Turned out though, also just wanted to mention towards the end here, this, like the top section of the car here, is this the same as we see, especially like this part here at the back, as it kind of shoots down towards the back of the car in terms of the way the airflow is going? Like, yeah, it definitely looks a little, maybe it's not different to what we saw in the mock-up render version we just saw, but I mean, maybe it's more pronounced here than it was when you look at the images that we have been shown. But yeah, the W14 on the track, I mean, looks fantastic. George Russell on his birthday gets to drive the new car. Now, you know, was it any good? That's the question that people want to know, especially when Veritas F1 comes out with the following. The premiere, the debut of the W14 has not been a dream, has not gone to plan. After the presentation, they have put it onto roll at Silverstone, and it has come up with some engine problems, which they have sent back the power unit for repair. It had ignition problems, misfiring and misfiring. They knew what was going to happen to them. They fear a repeat, and these parts are quite interesting. The fact that apparently they knew that this was a possibility of the engine, you know, effectively misfiring and behaving strangely, and they apparently fear a repeat. Now, the story on this has changed dramatically from when this tweet first went out to the current story we have, that actually it's kind of expected because, well, apparently there was a mistake with how they mounted it to the chassis. At the end of the day, it's a brand new car. This is, you know, today was clearly designed just to ensure everything's running okay, and apparently they made some mistake with how they mounted the power unit to the chassis, which we'll see here in a second. But nonetheless, right, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a bit strange for Mercedes of all teams to be having these issues on their first day of running. Just, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's an engine side of things. It's not necessarily the car behaving terribly when it's put onto track. But Mercedes, of course, had the most reliable power unit last year and barely needed any extra parts over the course of the season. Now, if they're suffering a misfire, that's certainly a bit of a strange one, and also some degree of ignition problem that they have now sent for repair. So sending for repair implies they know how to fix it, and the update came through not long after suggesting some more info. The problem is solvable, it is not serious, and it was due to an error in mounting the chassis to the engine, or the engine to the chassis. Tomorrow they'll be on the track for a filming day. That's the 100 kilometers. Today was only very briefly, and this source also says it doesn't affect Aston Martin, implying that it's not a power unit issue, it's more how it was connected to the car. So I guess someone made a mistake. It is what it is. Probably not a massive deal. It has been a problem that falls within the possible, so implying that they knew that it was a possibility. Maybe they'd felt like they might have made a mistake in the kind of, well, connecting the power units. End of the day, the power unit's the same one they had last year. There's been no real changes. Okay, some small reliability tweaks and some software updates, but at the end of the day, the engine's the same one they had last year. It was very reliable, so it would be a bit of a surprise if all of a sudden they're the team with all these engine issues, and it's not going to be the Ferrari engine, which of course was one of the key points of concern last year. So yeah, whether this continues to, but it's definitely a cause for concern for Mercedes fans, the fact that maybe their engine this year might not be so reliable as it was before. But I mean, obviously only a very brief shakedown they did today, and now this tweet actually goes on to say the following, that you know, just to check all systems, and clearly some of the checks actually came back with a negative result, but you know, info refers from the camp to positive sensations and a big sigh of relief from the boys. So it's kind of unclear exactly what's happening, because many are saying, oh, Mercedes, they're in danger. And now the latest information is that actually, yeah, okay, the engine might have had some issues, but they're really excited about the sensations of the car and think, okay, wow, guys, it actually works as we intended. So look, only a few laps, of course, he'll have done here of Silverstone, and Silverstone might not be so representative of the circuits at large. It's a pretty, obviously Silverstone has the straights, it's got the corners, it's got the high speed, the low speeds, so it does give you a pretty good understanding of how your car's going to fare. But of course, Mercedes are pretty good last year at Silverstone. Now, George Russell actually gave some statements after this and said there were no major scares during the shakedown, so kind of playing down the concern around the whole engine issues they seemingly had. And then he also was asked the question, is the car bouncing again? Is porpoising back? And he says to that, we will see it next week in Bahrain for testing, which is a pretty interesting statement, right? He didn't say, oh, no worries, the porpoising is gone, no issues at all, but he actually said, yeah, see next week whether this is whether it's actually going to be an issue or not, which might be fair enough, just because around okay, maybe that implies, oh, the porpoising's back and all this, or maybe he's just saying, well, we can't really glean that much information from a couple of laps on a cold day around Silverstone where there's been no real setup done to the car. They've just probably chucked it out on track to see how it drives for a little bit, whereas when they refine it when it comes to Bahrain, where cars did have porpoising problems last year, of course. I mean, we remember Hamilton and others going down this long straight where the track's a bit bouncy anyway, which adds to the porpoising where the cars were having the issue. So I guess really we'll see in Bahrain in a week's time whether the porpoising still remains for some of these teams and cars. But this is what George Russell has to say.
Did you get what you wanted for your birthday in terms of the car?
I said that to everybody today when they was wishing me happy birthday. I said it'll be happy if the car's fast. So no, but unfortunately on a day like this, there's just not enough opportunity to see how quick the car is. I mean, everything feels okay, but this sport's a relative game, and if our competitors have improved the same way as we have, we'll be in the same position as last year. But the amount of work and dedication that's gone into this W14, yeah, I guess we can go in feeling confident that we put everything on the table.
Definitely interesting timing of this potential porpoising return discussion here, with Albert Fabregas saying earlier in the day a word that we will use again in 2023 is porpoising. So he reckons this problem is not solved, and at the end of the day, porpoising is probably a natural result of having the ground effect as it is. You want to run the car as close to the ground as you can to get the maximum ground effect from under the floor, but in addition, it will create potential porpoising issues when it comes to tracks that are a little bit bumpier, maybe more uneven surface. It adds to the phenomenon. So we'll see which teams have it mostly under control, which teams do not. I think every team had it last year to a certain extent. Whether it's under control enough to run your car like Red Bull run their car, then of course that's the key question. But will Ferrari have any issues? I know we saw at Maranello when they did their kind of shakedown as soon as they revealed their car, Ferrari, that okay, Leclerc was bouncing about a bit, but I think that was largely the uneven track surface rather than any real aerodynamic effect. But also in this kind of shakedown here that Mercedes have done today, just to see what's happening, they won't have necessarily run it at maxed out power anyway and performance, so you won't really get the information. So I don't reckon George Russell's necessarily covering up the idea that the porpoising is back. I think he's more so saying, look, we'll just wait till next week, then we'll see, because we can't really take too much away from a couple of laps around Silverstone in not particularly representative conditions. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Just wanted to finish up with a couple of things here from Lewis Hamilton on the potential new contract situation, because we thought maybe that by now Hamilton might have signed a new deal with Mercedes, whatever that is. We believe that, okay, he's going to sign an extension to some degree. Whether that's going to include any sort of longer term Mercedes ambassadorial role, that's been rumoured around, and whether it's going to be a 1 year, 2 year extension, who knows. But of course he's contracted until the end of this season, at the end of 2023, and Hamilton says, look, I don't need the team to prove to me that we can still win. I know that we've got what it takes. Also going on to say there's the best harmony within the team that I've seen in all these years at the present time. So definitely some optimism from Hamilton on their future. And also Toto Wolff says, look, we've had a first chat about Hamilton continuing, but I don't want to commit to a timeline because it's not important to him nor for us at this stage. And Hamilton went on to say to the press afterwards that, look, he's going to stay around a little bit longer. So whether that's 1 year, 2 year, who knows? But we'll certainly be around beyond 2023, at least if his words mean anything, which they presumably do. Just to close out here with an update coming out of, well, the F1 guys, of the tyres that are going to be used in Bahrain, Jeddah, and Australia. So this year, there's another tyre compound. So last year, we had the C1 to the C5. C1 is the hardest compound, C5 is the softest compound. So on different race weekends, the soft, the medium, and the hard tyre are different tyres. On some tracks where there's high degradation, you'll actually have the soft tyre being the same as the hard tyre on other circuits. But this year, there's an additional kind of tyre compound. So instead of C1 to C5, it now goes C0 to C5. And C0 is the former C1. So last year's C1 tyre that was at times very difficult to warm up. You guys remember even in Bahrain, Hamilton came out the pit lane and couldn't even get control of his car going into the first corner because the tyres were so cold. And obviously the hard tyre is difficult to warm up anyway. So that's now going to be the C1. So the C1 is now an in-between tyre between what used to be the C1 and what is still the C2. So, I mean, I don't really know what you guys think about that, but nonetheless, there's the C0, the old C1 might not get used that often, and instead, they've decided in Bahrain we're going to use the new C1, which is a slightly softer compound and closer to the C2 than the C1 was before, which is now called the C0. So if you guys got that, congratulations. But here we go. So these are the tyre compounds for, well, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Melbourne as well, not too long after that. And also Aston Martin, they're getting ready to go for their shakedown as well. But hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.